Our Lenten journey, this 40 days where we reflect on those things that keep us from God, begins with stories of mission and temptation. One of those stories is from the Gospels, and we read it in Matthew 4. Hear the words from Matthew. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But Jesus answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took Jesus to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will command his angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." But Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord to the test." Again, the devil took him up to a very high mountain and showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And the devil said to Jesus, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." And then Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. This is the word of God for the people of God. Please be seated. This story about temptation, the temptation of Jesus, takes place immediately after Jesus' baptism that we read about just a few weeks ago. Jesus goes down to the Jordan to be baptized by John, and as he comes out of the water, Jesus' identity is revealed. And God says, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am pleased." Jesus is identified, and then God sends him through the Spirit out in the desert, where he's going to take 40 days to discern his mission. And during those days when he's trying to discern exactly what his mission is going to be, what all it entails, he encounters temptations that might pull him away from that mission. But this isn't the first story of people given a mission and being tempted in our scriptures. In fact, the Holy Book starts with a story about mission and temptation. Way back there in Genesis 2. In Genesis, God creates the universe and all that is in it. And then God calls and creates human beings in God's image. And God sets them a mission. God says to them, all of this is yours. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to take care of it. That's it. Except there's this one tree that I'd really rather you not mess with. Don't eat from this one. You are to take care of this. And apparently they said, okie dokie. And they went about their lives, Adam and Eve. They had heard the voice of God. They were identified as God's beloved and given a mission. And it looked like they were going to do it pretty good. But then they heard another voice. Hey there. What you doing? Oh, we're just taking care of things here. Are you hungry? Oh, yeah? We think this tree over here is really good. Oh, that one we're not supposed supposed to touch. Really? Looks awful nice to me. I bet it tastes really good. Well, it could, but God said not to touch it. So we really shouldn't. Oh, God just said that because he doesn't want you to be like him. Now, whose image were they created in? Oh, God's. So they were already like God. They had God's self in them. But this voice said that they weren't. You're not really God's image. Not really. But if you ate that, if you had this one thing that you don't have now, then you'll be like God. Then. And they listened to that other voice. And they took the fruit and they ate it. And instead of being closer to God, it drove them further away. We have a mission if we choose to accept it. Our only mission is to take care of creation and to grow closer into the image God created us to be. But, like in the garden, like what Simon says, we get caught up and excited and we get confused about what our mission is. We get distracted. And so we start listening to these other voices that say, oh, if only you had more of this or less of that. If only you pursued this or pursued that. And we forget what it is we're really supposed to be doing. I thought of a couple of other titles for my sermon. Distraction from our mission, discerning the voice. And then as often happens to me, I get flashes shortly before worship starts. And one of my flashes this morning came in just this innocent conversation with Frank. As he was telling me, and here's the title that I came up with, The Adventures of Barkley and Distraction Training. Barkley is Frank and Garrett's new puppy. And Barkley, we know, passed puppy training beautifully. And now he is in intermediate training. And his first lessons are in distraction training. How to keep focused on his mission. And Frank said they had to take a ball, a tennis ball, and they had to tell Barkley to sit. And then they bounce the ball and walk around him, and his job is just to sit. And Frank says he doesn't take his eye off the ball. He keeps watching that distraction. But when he's successful, he keeps his mission of staying seated. But before they could do that, they had to do the first training, which was know my voice and know that I am Alpha. Barkley had to learn the voice he needed to listen to before he could sit still and focus on what he was called to do. Our job, in order to do that mission, is to get to know the voice that we're supposed to obey, that will call us into our mission and lead us through the mission. But there will always be distractions. Jesus tells the disciples that over and over. We see it from the beginning of time. Life is distractions, trials and temptations. Everything about life calls us away from the mission. And we can name those distractions all kinds of things, and we can name the voices in our head. Mine have several names, lots. We can name them whatever we want them to be. Those tapes in our heads that say, we need to be more successful than someone else. We need a new car. I can't spare the money to buy a pair of jeans for the homeless because I might need something tomorrow. I can't. We hear those voices rather than listening to, Simon says, God says, trust me. God says, feed the hungry. God says, clothe the homeless. God says, you don't need that. God says, you need to be in church on Sunday. Unless the roads are too icy and you'll fall off a cliff. And God says, we need to hear that voice. But we don't. We hear the others. And the only way we can get to know the voice of God and discern it from the others is if we take time to learn God's voice. When we look at both those temptations, when we look at the temptations of Adam and Eve, when the snake said, you can eat that, whose words did Eve use to say no? God's. God said not to. She quotes God. When Jesus faces the temptations, each time he uses words of God to refute the voice in his head or the voice of the devil or whoever you want that to personify as. And then, wily temptation, the devil uses God's words back. Because we will do that. We will twist the words of God so that they'll tell us what we are supposed to do. God helps them who help themselves, so I got to take care of me first. Okay, that was the voice of God. Maybe not. We can twist it if we're not familiar, if we're not living close to God. We need to live every moment knowing that God is in our head and in our heart and beside us. That is the only way we can walk through the temptations and the distractions that will pull us farther away from God. Some of you have noticed that, gosh, it could have been, I don't know, maybe as much as 6 months ago, I changed a couple of words, I'm bold, in the Lord's Prayer. It's changed in your bulletin, and it's even changed on the PowerPoint. And there was a while when people said, Debbie, do you know there's a mistake in here? I said, maybe not. I changed it from lead us not into temptation to leave us not in temptation. Because as I look at the theology, as I look at who God is and what God does, I know the God I encounter does not lead me into temptation. God doesn't say, come here, I'm going to put you at the edge of this cliff. What does happen is as I accept God's mission for my life, as I accept the mission of caring for the world, I'm going to be distracted and I'm going to be tempted. And there's going to be snakes in my path and tempters saying, make bread instead of this. Use your power. Those things are going to happen. That is the nature of life. So God doesn't lead me there. But like Jesus said, follow me and you're going to have to carry your cross. Yeah. But the prayer is, leave me not. And that doesn't, again, mean leave me, take me out of this. Don't leave me in this trouble. Take me out. Miraculously pull me out. That's not what this leave means either. What this leave means is, don't leave me alone in this. Help me know that your voice is in my head. Your word is in my heart. Your hand is in my hand. You're carrying me. Help me know that. Leave me not when I'm in the trials, when I'm in the temptations. Help me know you are with me always, even unto the ends of the earth. Help me know that word so that the tennis ball bouncing around me doesn't distract me. I can keep my eyes focused on you. When we were training, there was a time when we actually did train a dog, not Mac, but we trained the other dog, Kobuhua, Snowball. We would say, they taught us to say, watch me. And we would look at the dog, watch me, watch me. And the dog would focus and then would do whatever we asked him to do. Watch me. In trials and temptations, God is saying, watch me, watch me. Keep your eyes on me. Not the bouncing ball, not the whatever. Keep your eyes on me. And we'll walk through this together. As we go through Lent, our job is to get quiet, have times of quiet throughout these 40 days, not just on Sunday, throughout these 40 days. Listen to the voice of God. Listen to all those voices in your head. And find the one that's saying, watch me. Watch me. And focus on that so that those other voices can be the ones you give up for Lent. As we go to prayer, let's watch God.